1984 to 1994. Heady days. A decidedly decadent decade. At the start of it, Pat Benatar and Wham ruled the airwaves. And by its end, D-Ream and Wet 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 were unavoidable. Bob Hawke was Prime Minister in 84, Paul Keating in 94. Everyone wanted to know who shot JR on Dallas in the 80s, and Walker Texas Ranger was worrying rustlers in 1994. Meanwhile, 3 men were busking on the streets of Canberra. One of them, an angry activist, who went on to deliver incisive and biting political commentary to the masses on the telly. His name is Paul McDermott. That's the one. A former member of the Doug Anthony Allstars. And he's in town to remember, reminisce and deliver some songs. And if I may, to touch Peter Barr.
Hello, Peter. That was the longest intro in the history of existence.
I know, right? And there's still more to come.
I mean, beautiful, florid.
Beautiful but long.
You're about to find out where the name Barr comes from.
That's beautiful but long on RTR FM. I think I mentioned the Doug Anthony Allstars amongst all that. So lock up your thingies. There's another one of them in town as well. For this one, the phrase "speak softly and carry a big stick" is pertinent. He's entertainment stalwart Tim Ferguson. He does half of this. He carries the big stick, but he chooses to speak loudly and proudly without fear or favour. And man, does he have a lot to say. From his early days busking on those cold Canberra streets with his scaly mates Paul and Richard, to hosting a peculiar program on commercial TV, to stand-up tours around the USA and the UK, to that stick and the reason he carries it. Tim Ferguson is in town for many reasons. One of them is, to hang out here. Hello, Tim.
Hey, how's it going, Peter Barr? And I've got to say, you make the word pertinent just sound a little bit dirty. Oh, you're so pertinent.
Yeah.
What a glorious coincidence. I don't know if you know this, but Tim and I used to work together.
Yes.
I mean, it was many years ago, Peter.
Would it have been a heady decade?
No,
84 to 94, possibly?
Yeah, wait a second. That's where I've heard it before. Yes.
You didn't start... if history books tell us anything, Paul, it tells us sometimes the truth. One fact nugget is that you weren't there right at the very beginning.
No, there was another gentleman that was in the All-Stars prior to my arrival. What you call their years of failure. A guy called Robert Piper, who is now the big poobah of Nepal.
He seems to have done pretty well for himself.
He's done very well, yeah. He was an aide to Clinton for many years.
Right.
Yeah, lovely fella.
He is with the United Nations, the UN representative and humanitarian coordinator in Nepal.
I did catch up with him in Nepal in December. So it was lovely to see him. He's doing very well.
So being one of the founding members of a Canberra-based anarcho-punk comedy trio,
yes,
was perfect grounding for work in humanitarian crises.
Oh, he couldn't deal with it. That's why he had to get out. He couldn't cope with the politics that Ferguson was espousing at the time, so he had to leave.
It was fairly radical. I was the only mild conservative hanging with a whole bunch of punks. I was mildly conservative.
Even though you seem to be labelled as the angry one, McDermott, it was you, wasn't it, Tim, that drove the more political edge?
It was the blind fury I brought to the act. Paul's not an angry person, as you can see. He's a tea-drinking, weight-lifting...
I'm a Buddhist.
And a Buddhist, yeah. He's come back from Tibet.
Rastafarian. I was Rastafarian for a while.
Yep.
I love Mali and the gunja.
How you make art, too. Beautiful, sublime, serene art, which does belie this angry goblin persona that has been created.
Well, the reason the angry goblin came into effect was because when we started getting the personas for the group, because they were sort of comic exaggerations of our real personalities. But I was a very sweet, very nauseatingly sweet character. But then I discovered that Richard, he's a bit like a puppy dog, and he would just copy everything I would do. And so he became very sweet on stage, and then it became difficult for me to be sweet because you can't have two sweet people. You know, we needed contrast. So I was forced to become aggressive.
You seem to cope with it okay, though.
Oh no, I'm a performer. So that's what I became. But sadly, people seem to confuse the act with the with the reality of it.
Yeah, sure.
Of who I am.
That whole fact and fiction business melding and...
It's hard. Richard is the aggressive one. He's a monster.
Oh, man.
His ABC audience don't know that.
It's all about the money.
Is that James Franco? I didn't see it before, but you are a good-looking fella. If you had your arm stuck in a boulder, you could hack it off. You could do a version of 27 Hours. I'm going to get a photograph of you and put it on Twitter or something. People would not believe me.
Yeah, sadly, folks.
Has anyone said that before?
I have thought
you are just, in a half-light, you could get away with that.
He's looking at news guy come morning mag presenter come photographer Andy Snelling. Not at me, sadly, with all the Franco references, but...
a handsome man.
He is. I mean, I could leave you two alone for a bit if you like. Tim and I have got plenty to talk about. You're not so keen on him, I see, Tim. No, look, certainly not as much as Paul.
I'm more of a Spider-Man man myself, not his plucky sidekicks.
You have a chat to Timmy. I'm going to hop on the Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah, we're tweeting live from the radio station.
We're taking it over, people. We're taking it over.
Tim, you are in town for many things. It's a bit hard to keep up with you right now. The Wild West Comedy Festival is one of them, and I hope you get a bit of chance to have a sleep because you're on stage tonight and tomorrow night, then a couple of other times. But you're heading to our island as well, our idyllic island paradise.
Yeah, next week going to Rotto Fest, where I don't know what's going to happen, but there's apparently music and dancing and comedians and lovin', lots of lovin'. Apparently, what happens on Rotto Fest is photographed, put on the net, and then what's on the net stays on Rotto Fest.
Once it's been publicly distributed. Have you just taken a photo of Andy Snelling, Paul McDermott?
Yeah, I'm labelling it at the moment. So to keep chatting amongst it, Rottnest, what a beautiful little island that is.
You made it over?
I've made it over. When I went there back in the 80s, I got the I must say on Galaxian, I got the highest score on that island. It was one of my great moments of pride. And I tell you what, the young people on the island gathered round me at that point as I was playing Galaxian and cheered me on in what could only be described as an American teen movie moment.
And Galaxian's not easy. That's not an easy game.
I was moving that little white spaceship backwards and forwards and blowing the shit out of the aliens. It was a wild time. Kids were going crazy. They were dancing. It was like there was going to be a revolution there.
Well, and the tribes people of Rotto Nest were they all gathered around palm leaves. I heard about that.
It was incredible. It was like suddenly the island wanted to secede.
Yeah. Or succeed. As they've been trying for many, many years. Well, I am with these two. There is much to get through.
We're in town doing shows, by the way. I'm doing a show. Tim's doing a show. Come and see us.
Paul McDermott's doing a show tomorrow night at the Astor Theatre. That's right, folks. The Astor Theatre. How many shows? 2 shows.
2 shows in one night, ladies and gentlemen. I've got to make love in between the shows. Someone help me out.
He's like the Michael Flatley of the Astor.
Michael Flatley was a dancer sometime in the... What year was he around? God, that's an old reference.
That's an old reference.
Yeah. We're throwing him around.
More known for intercourse than dancing, I think, in the history.
Is that a question?
I don't know.
Well, you said McDermott seems to be the expert.
And I, too, am on at the Empyrean Theatre tonight.
No, not the Empyrean.
At the Empyrean, Paul.
That's a very impressive name.
Come down, see Tim Ferguson with his big stick at the Empyrean Theatre. 6:40 this evening, tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. But hurry up and get there, ladies and gentlemen, before Tim and Paul... what are we doing after? Go to lunch.
Go to lunch.
For a minute more. It's Breakfast with Bar on the Sound Alternative, streaming live around the...
What?
That's what it's called.
It's called Breakfast with Bar. Every man in the state knows what you're talking about.
That's a gift, that one. Well, should call it Bar Up.
Well, there was this high-powered, marketing meeting before I took on the gig with coming to it with my pre-existing surname, and it could have been Bar in the morning. Could have been breakfast bar.
Every
bar
man.
up.
Yeah, wake up with a bar. Oh, I'm sorry, we've gone bad, haven't we?
We've gone?
McDermott and Ferguson. Paul McDermott, Tim Ferguson are with me. If we had Richard Fiedler's phone number...
Fiddler, it's pronounced Fiddler.
Is it?
Yeah.
I know another guy only one D though.
Yeah, well, yes, there is now, yeah.
There used to be
There
two.
used to be two.
And they took one out. It's true. Because he came running home one day. His name is
You
Richard.
can't tell this story. It's a private story.
His name is Richard. And his surname is Fiddler. Work it out, people. Work it out.
Had a 5-year-old child in tears because the kids were mocking him, so they had to change the family name.
Folks really didn't think about it much, did they?
They're not bright people.
Nobody ever calls up his radio show and says, "Hey, it's a funny name for a radio guy."
He's done all right, hasn't he? He's on radio. He talks to people for hours and hours.
He's on Mogadon too. That slowed him down. The guy is a monster. He is just a non-stop monster. You think that Paul and I were the bad boys? Forget that. Richard was just the one saying, "Faster, more, give me more."
They were bad years, the 80s.
Yeah.
A lot of chemicals that fella took.
Richard's catchphrase was, "Here, put these on."
Do you remember the whipping on the last tour?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, that was... Anyway, we won't talk about it. They could still be... People could still be alive from those times.
Yeah, I think it's past subjudice.
We're talking about the Doug Anthony Allstars. That was a thing that these two did with this guy, Richard, which did come to an end, and then more life appeared before each of you and took you in different directions.
Me to interpretive dance.
And me to the Astor Theatre on Friday night for two fantastic shows.
Segue.
At 7:30 and 9.
Paul McDermott. Paul Sings. Who's the Paul in Paul Sings?
I'm the Paul in Paul Sings.
Wow, there's a connection.
There was one or two other things that you did, Paul McDermott, before hitting the Astor Theatre. And you too, Tim Ferguson. You've both had a crack at commercial TV in various formats.
Me quite successfully.
You never had anything to do with Big Brother. Tim Ferguson did.
I was all over Big Brother like a rash. In fact, imagine an actual Big Brother with a rash. And that was me.
And also I think the much...
iconic is the word you're after.
What the hell was it? Don't forget your toothbrush, which was a...
the hell was it? Are you crazy? Now, this is what happens when you come to community radio. People go, yeah, when you don't forget the toothbrush. It was the biggest television production outside of the Olympics Sydney broadcast this country's ever made. It was massive. It was huge. And it had me in the middle.
It was a television show then?
It was.
I think it had a crane in it.
Show.
It had a crane and suitcases.
Had a crane, it had a supermodel.
A giant toothbrush.
One night we gave away $50,000 showering money from the ceiling on the audience for a 10-second gag. That's television, ladies and gentlemen, not your, oh, look, they're eating muesli. None of that.
What I was wondering was that those days, for both of you, Good News Week and Don't Forget Your Toothbrush and Big Brother, must seem, in retrospect, a massive world away from what we were talking about earlier, those heady days with Doug Anthony Allstars. Did you ever think one would lead to the other for both of you?
Yes.
No, you did not.
Yes, we always thought that. In fact, the Allstars were just a stepping stone for Timothy Ferguson and myself to do our much-lauded TV shows.
That's right.
And it doesn't seem that long ago for me because Good News Week was on the air. I've become all Richard, haven't I?
Years?
For 107 years.
It was like 12, 14 years or something. Good News Week just went and went. And considering it was on commercial television for a long time, even the news on the 6:30 news hasn't lasted that long.
Yeah. They had to make the chair bigger and bigger to accommodate my ass. Quite portly. Quite portly now. This chair's not big enough.
You certainly over the years have both become, we talked about the Anthony Allstars as having this persona, and we thought you might have been certain types of people, and, well, clearly you weren't. You were never those people?
No, we were iconic.
He was a prince at one stage.
I was.
A Russian prince.
I was.
In Adelaide. That was pretty interesting.
That was,
We may have told some lies.
That'll get you lucky. if you're lonely and nobody's talking to you, and even if you're ugly, you just say that you're a member of foreign royalty, and that will get you laid.
I spoke to Paul McDermott on the telephone a little while back, and somebody emailed in at the time to say that they fondly recall watching him dance. at the Loft nightclub. And this same person has just emailed me, studio@rtrfm.com.au, to say that my husband has a child in his school called Chase Wood. I kid you not.
It's better than Chase Bar.
Just by the by.
I mean, we're all chasing Wooden away.
Well, you know, we don't want to get into this, but I did know a girl called Ophelia Cox. Let's move on now.
Briskly.
We know a guy called Dick Fiddler.
Had a good clip, I think, this morning. That guitar, Tim, it's gently weeping over there in the corner. Is there anything we can do with it?
We need someone to be able to play it, which would be great, and someone to tune it. Because I've been trying to tune it, but it slips. It's untunable. Yeah.
Yeah, that weeping's going to leave a bit of a stain.
We'll leave it there to rest then. For another time. You guys clearly, unless once again this is performance and that world of theatre of which I know nothing, you seem like buddies. Are you good? You're on pretty good terms?
The first we've heard of it. We are compadres. We are other things, colleagues, comrades.
Yeah, I mean, when you're with
icons.
Yeah, travelling with a couple of fellas for most of our 20s, as we did, and you're in very close proximity. It is like a very bad marriage, and because you're relying on each other for your financial sort of future, your meals. You know, it's a very weird world, and the only good thing about this combination of people being together for such a long time is that we didn't produce any children. Otherwise, we tried, didn't we? Oh man, Richard tried in Spain with one of the
with one of the what? That's a funny story. It's too long, but Richard gave it a go.
Red hot.
Yeah, no, we've always been good mates. I mean, good Paul. You can't not love Paul.
Yeah,
he's a cuddly, funny.
But that's, you know, good marriages can go sour, good times can go bad, a three-way can go wrong.
Marriages go sour.
Talk about that. Let's talk about that, Mr.
Marriages
Barr.
go sour because the sex stops, and we know whose fault that is. So that's, you know, you've got to keep up the sex. For us, we just made sure it was with other people.
Right.
And that keeps things healthy. There's no recriminations.
It's good. I think a lot of people wonder about this without looking doing any research or asking the questions. They just wonder whatever happened to the Doug Anthony Allstars. You three, if any unit,
I wonder that as well,
comes to an end, did it end because everything went berserk, or did it just reach a natural conclusion?
Well, my brain kept exploding, and I had like a wife and children, and these forces of nature eventually meant that I couldn't I just couldn't keep this stuff up. So it was a very dull, boring and awful time where, me of all people, who would have thought at least Richard would say he couldn't stand it anymore. Me of all people, I was the one who had to stand up and say, I can't do this anymore. And my wife won't let me.
Tim and I waited for years for Richard to leave the group, but he just wouldn't. It was like kids now who are 27 and still living with their mum and dad. That's what it felt like. It was like, come on, for God's sake, let's get someone who can play guitar in. But he just kept hanging around.
Yeah, well, for those of you who remember the shtick, you'd recall that he probably should have left a long time ago.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah, Keith Richards wanted to join the band, and we said yes, except Richard was like, where will I be?
What was that gig? The Smile? Was it Smile?
Yes,
hurricane?
Smile, Jamaica. You've just been hit by a hurricane.
Yeah,
we did a gig with you too. That was wild.
Ziggy Marley. And Keith Richards couldn't put his guitar on. He just couldn't. He couldn't get his. Anyway, it was a long time ago.
It was so off his face. He couldn't get his guitar strap on. A little roadie had to come running on stage and put Mr. Richards' guitar on, and it was like, yeah, all right. It was. Yeah,
it was after Jamaica got hit with a hurricane. There'd been the original Smile Jamaica with Bob Marley, who passed away, and then they did Ziggy Marley did a big concert in London that we were part of, and that was pretty wild. Yeah,
is that where you smoked the ganja?
No, I don't smoke ganja. I make jokes about it.
Right,
like jokes about many drugs, but I do not endorse them in any way, shape, or form.
You got to watch the eyebrows when we're talking with wiggling eyebrows. We're joking.
Yeah.
But
I'm doing a show, by the way. I don't know if you know this.
Paul McDermott's doing a show.
Doing a show.
It's called Paul Sings.
I sing.
Paul
I
will be
sing.
Why do you keep banging on about his show?
Well, just because he's going to be singing original songs. I didn't know all the songs were Paul McDermott originals. Like, he's written all these songs.
Well, you do
sometimes
we
on
keep
walls.
hearing about how well you sing, Paul, and you just seem to tune up just nicely then. Might be a nice dip, 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 dub, 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 get a job. What about a little, how many times have people...
I got sunshine on a cloudy day. And when it's cold outside, I've got the month of May. Now, you know what would help now? 3-part vocals. That would really...
James Franco.
James Franco is in the room and such a quiet young man.
Beautiful stuff. All right, then. Now, finally, Tim, I do want to ask about that stick and your health. How are you travelling?
Do you have violins? Because I have multiple sclerosis.
I've just got to go to the toilet. Excuse me.
Yeah. It's a show about, dealing with multiple sclerosis. If you have multiple sclerosis, you probably can't even turn on the radio. But look, I'm going to be telling the story of my life, which, of course, gets hit by a tidal wave, which is MS. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I have MS. And it's a comedy show about MS. Which is, it's actually a very funny sort of condition because it doesn't make any damn sense. It's a brain thing, and it means that sometimes parts of your body don't work. Fortunately, the ones that you want to work still stay online because apparently they're the ones that are controlled by the deepest, darkest part of your brain. But so I talk about this. If you know anybody who whinges about having MS, tell them to come along to my show. I'll cheer them up. I'll give them a bit of stick. I'll make them feel happy about their haircut and the fact that they've been annoying everybody.
Yeah. Lovely to see you and your fringe still intact.
He just pointed at me.
He did. I'm still in the toilet.
Are you going to be on his stage?
Oh, well,
we're
in Perth at the same time, which is weird because we actually ended the group here in Perth at the Astor Theatre, so there's lots of memories there.
And that's where Paul's doing his shows at the Astor Theatre.
Which is weird.
Are you going to be there on that stage?
Oh, I don't know. I may make one appearance for an hour.
There may be another very special guest coming because I think we could be relaunching something tomorrow night at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe relaunching something here because we ended something here in Perth and it's never really been truly ended, has it, Tim?
No, it never has. And now that we're guitarist free, anything's possible.
Yeah. Well,
really?
Yeah. I have the scoop. The scoop for you, Mr. Barr. Do you believe it?
Bar up.
Thanks for being with me, men, on the Sound Alternative, RTR FM 92.1.
This has been an RTR FM podcast. RTR FM is an independent community radio station that relies on the public for financial support. You can subscribe online at rtrfm.com.au/subscribe.